Hey guys, welcome back to Science. It's me, Mr. Lewis, with you again. This is Chapter 2, Section 2, Domains and Kingdoms. So we'll be talking about some fun domains and kingdoms today. Ladies and gentlemen, over here on the board, this is on the screen here. This is your bell ringer. Go ahead and get your bell ringer down on Edmodo. Answer it up real quick, and then we'll get started. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. Our objectives today is to explain how classification developed as greater numbers of organisms became known, describe the 3 domains, and describe the 4 kingdoms in the domain Eukarya. Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. What is it? I don't know. What is it? I don't know, but it is something. Ladies and gentlemen, when we start looking at organisms, when scientists started looking at organisms, remember that they started classifying things as plants and animals. That was the first way that they classified things. And then they had to get more complex. Remember we talked about in the last section, we talked about the Deer King Phil, come over for good spaghetti. In other words, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. There you go. They had the classification system that came up as more and more organisms became known. We talked about that in the last section. Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about more. We're going to get more talking about the actual domains and kingdoms today. Now, what is it? We use those domains to classify. We use that classification system to classify things. And I told you in the last section that we have to worry about, or that humans have a need of classifying things, putting things in proper order so that they are easily understood. Now, if you read on your screen, it talks about adding new classifications. And we talked about that last time, that if there's a new organism that's discovered, then, and it doesn't fit into any of the other classifications, then guess what? We create a new order classification for it. Now, the example that's in your book talks about this euglenoid. That's the green thing at the bottom of your book there on page 54. That's the green thing down there. Interestingly, this is something that they had to create a new kingdom for it. So what they did is they first looked at it, and as they started studying it, they realized that it was single-celled, lived in pond water, and it was green and made their own food through photosynthesis. Well, photosynthesis tells us then it should be in the kingdom Plantae, because guess what? It makes its own food through photosynthesis. But it also moves around with a whipping tail called a flagella, and it can feed on other organisms. Well, there's no plants that feed on other organisms, except for maybe the Venus flytrap. I don't know about that. But there's no plant that feeds on other organisms. So what did they do? Scientists had to come up with a new way to classify this thing. So they created a new kingdom called the Protista kingdom just for this organism. That's pretty cool. So there's a real life example of what I was talking about. They created a new classification for something. They had to create a new kingdom for that euglenoid because it was different than all the other organisms that were inside the kingdoms before. Now, when we talk about these, we'll start off with the domains first. There are actually 3 domains. All right, you have the domain Archaea, you have the domain Bacteria, and you have the domain Eukarya. All right, domain Archaea and Bacteria are kind of the same, although they're not. They're kind of the same. And then domain Eukarya is completely different. We talk about domain Archaea. What we're talking about is prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are things, if you guys remember from last year, I said pro, no, euc, nuke. All right. Prokaryotes have no nucleus. Eukaryotes have nucleus. So domain Eukarya, those should have a nucleus. The domain Archaea are single-cell prokaryotes, single-celled organisms that don't have a nucleus. That's what we're talking about as far as Archaea. Now, our book isn't, and we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the domain Archaea and Bacteria. You'll get that at high school. Right now, we're just telling you that there are those out there. All right. Now, domain Bacteria is the same thing. It's another kind of prokaryote. Again, pro, no, euc, nuke. It does not have a nucleus. So just like the Archaea, bacteria don't have a nucleus. They're found in soil, water, and even on the inside of you and me. We have bacteria that live inside of us that help with digestion and stuff like that. And then also is something that makes us sick if we get too much of certain bacteria in us. Now, the domain that we're really going to worry about today will be domain Eukarya. Domain Eukarya is what we belong inside of. Okay, domain Eukarya. All organisms have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. All right, so that is us. We have a nucleus in our cells. Our cells have a nucleus, and we have membrane-bound organelles. If you remember last year, we talked about the mitochondria and all that kind of stuff. Those are what they're talking about as far as organelles, the Golgi complex and those different things. That's what they're talking about, the membrane-bound organelles. You have four main kingdoms inside the domain Eukarya. You have the Protista, you have the fungi, or fungi, however you want to say it, the Plantae, and Animalia. That's four. So you got Protista, fungi or fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Those are the four main kingdoms inside domain Eukarya. In the kingdom Protista, which is the first one, these are single-celled or simple multicellular organisms. All right. When we talk about these things, they contain many kind of organisms that, like protozoans, algae, slime molds, and euglenoids. So when you look over here, on page 56, and you see that yellow thing that looks like a worm and all that stuff, that is a slime mold. The green thing on the previous page, the euglenoid, those are all kingdom Eukarya. Those things belong in our domain Eukarya, kingdom Protista. Okay. Now remember, the Protista, they're commonly called protists. They are single-celled or simple multicellular organisms. All right. So that is the kingdom Protista. Next is the kingdom fungi or fungi, however you want to pronounce it. These are molds and mushrooms that are examples of them. They are complex multicellular members, all right, complex multicellular organisms inside of the kingdom fungi. Now, they do not perform photosynthesis, nor do they eat food, but they absorb the nutrients in the soil in order to get their food, or the surroundings, wherever they happen to be, in order to get their food. Okay, they cannot produce food through photosynthesis. They don't eat food either. So fungi, those two criteria right there, classify something as in the kingdom of fungi. Okay, now the last thing, or the next one, is kingdom Plantae. Now, of course, Plantae, you look at it, you kind of think of plants, and that's exactly what it is. Kingdom Plantae, they all are all eukaryotic. They have cell walls. You remember last year we talked about plant cells have cell walls, and they make their own food through photosynthesis. All right, that's the difference between the fungi and the Plantae. Fungi do not make food through photosynthesis. Plantae do make food through photosynthesis, and typically these organisms cannot move. All right, they are typically bound in place. They can't move around. All right. Now, examples of these would be sequoia trees, which you see the picture of on page 57. They have pine trees as well, roses, grasses, ferns. Those are all examples of kingdom Plantae because they have cell walls and make their own food through photosynthesis. The last kingdom we'll talk about is the kingdom Animalia. Now, these organisms have complex multicellular and have don't have cell walls. We don't have cell walls, okay? They don't have cell walls, usually able to move around and have specialized sense organs to help them respond to the environment. Now, that is the things that belong in the kingdom Animalia. Can we move? Yes. Do we have specialized sense organs? Yes. Do we have cell walls? No. So what kingdom do you think we as humans belong in? You guessed it, we are animals. Examples of animals are ants, beetles, lizards, fish, birds, apes, elephants, and more. Those are all examples, including us. It's not on there, but we are an example of kingdom Animalia. Now, we depend on bacteria and fungi to recycle nutrients found in dead organisms. The things that we eat are dead, whether it's a plant like lettuce, whether it's an animal like a cow. All right, and our beef. That is a dead organism. So the bacteria that we have inside of our body, we use those to help break down those materials and recycle nutrients to get it into our system so we're able to be nourished. All right, that is a kingdom Animalia. Last, and also part of the kingdom Animalia, are simple animals. And these animals are able to move, but like sponges, these animals can't move. Okay, I'm sorry. These animals can't move, but most animals can. But sponges are considered a simple animal. All right, because they don't have cell walls, but they can't move. All right, but they can respond to their environment. So that puts them inside the kingdom Animalia. Now, that is the four main kingdoms of the eukaryote domain. So here is your review I will give you a few minutes to go ahead and read this and write it down in your notes, and then we'll go ahead and finish up. Alrighty, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was 2.2, and we'll be moving on to the next chapter here shortly. You guys all have a great day, and I'll be seeing you in the future.